The first time I saw my Reddit username taped to my front door, I thought some neighbor was being clever. I remember standing there with my keys in my hand, sweat drying on my neck from the run, and just snorting. Like, okay, whoever did this clearly had too much time. It felt like some dumb prank, not a threat. Masking tape, neat letters, and a little printed Reddit alien. Underneath, nice walk today. I peeled it off and just stared. My username in the exact same goofy capitalization I used online. Nice walk today. Not run, not jog, not workout. Walk. The way I called it, even when I ran. It scratched at me, but I stuffed it in my pocket and told myself it was nothing. I've been posting in a tiny local sub about safe running routes for women, sharing maps and times because I was stupid and lonely and it felt like talking to friends. I'd post screenshots of routes, little notes like good lighting here or avoid this alley, creepy guys, and wait for that orange. That was my social life. One user, Trail Guy, always replied first. Harmless tips, dad jokes, lots of upvotes. Don't trip. We need you alive to update the map. I rolled my eyes and still liked his comments. Attention is attention. That night, I kept replaying it. How the hell does a random person know my username and my building? I tried to force a reasonable explanation. Maybe someone in the building saw a post I made with the lobby in the background. Maybe it was the guy from 3B, the one who always held the elevator too long, trying to flirt like an idiot. I let my brain pick the least scary option and held on to it. Next morning, I went out again because I'm stubborn and stupid. Halfway through the route, I noticed him. Gray hoodie, hood up, hands in pockets. Limp in his left leg. He stayed on the other side of the street, always just far enough that if I pointed and said him, I'd sound paranoid. I slowed to tie my shoe. He stopped and pretended to check his phone. I turned down a side street I never take. He turned too. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to finish the run. When I got home, there was nothing on my door, so I told myself I'd imagined it. Then I opened Reddit and saw a new comment from Trail Guy. Early start today, huh? Proud of you. I hadn't mentioned the time in the post. I just wrote morning run. My stomach flipped. I told myself it was a coincidence. People guess. People assume. My brain kept saying that while my hands shook over the keyboard. After the note, I started catching the same man on different routes. Same gray hoodie, same limp, never close enough to prove. On the bus, outside my gym, at the grocery store 2 suburbs over. I look up, and he'd already be looking at me. Not staring exactly, just clocking me, logging me. I'd lose him, then later I'd see a comment from Trail Guy about some route I'd only mentioned, not posted. My friend said I was spiraling. Maybe I was, but spiraling doesn't wedge paper in your window. Second note showed up wedged in my window frame. You looked sad today. Want company. No username this time. Just my face printed from one of my own posts with the background cropped out. It was a selfie I took in the lobby mirror, the one where I joked about sweaty gremlin mode. In the printout, everything else was gone. Just my face like something hunted and pinned. I yanked it out so hard I chipped the old paint on the frame. That's when the fear finally beat the denial. I locked every lock, dragged a chair under the door handle like I was in some low-budget horror movie, then stood there shaking and furious. I called the non-emergency police line, tried to explain. He knows my schedule. He's watching me. The woman on the line asked, has he made a direct threat? I kept saying he put my online name on my door, and she kept circling back to, well, he hasn't harmed you yet. Yet. That word did nothing but slap a countdown on my life. I went to the building manager too, showed him the notes, the picture. He shrugged, said kids pull shit all the time, promised to check the cameras I knew didn't work. I wanted to scream at him, shake him, make him feel what it's like to unlock your own door and not know if someone's behind it. Instead, I just stood there, swallowing it, because that's what you do. If you act too scared, they treat you like you're crazy. If you act calm, they act like it's no big deal. You can't win. I wiped my account, went private everywhere, changed schedules. Thought I'd killed it. Deleting that account felt like scraping off part of my skin. Years of posts gone in seconds. I changed my route times, started running in busy areas even though I hated the noise. Kept my blinds shut. I told myself, that's it. He'll get bored. Game over. For a few days, nothing happened. No hoodie, no notes, no comments, obviously. Just this heavy, gross silence. I almost convinced myself I'd overreacted. Then the paranoia came in waves. I started sleeping with my phone under my pillow and my keys in my hand. Every sound in the hallway made me freeze and hold my breath. I kept replaying his limp, his posture, the way he never walked toward me, always parallel, like he was measuring something. I caught myself wanting another note just to prove I wasn't crazy. That fucked me up more than anything. Last thing I got wasn't a note. It was an envelope with no stamp slid under my door while I showered. I didn't hear it. That's what makes me sick. I was naked, water in my ears, music playing off my phone, doing that stupid thing where you talk to yourself in the mirror afterward. When I walked out, towel around me, the envelope lay right there on the floor like a snake. Plain white, my apartment number in the same neat marker. My first thought was that it had to be from management. Second thought, why no logo, no anything? My hand actually shook when I picked it up. The flap wasn't even sealed all the way, like he was sure I'd open it. Inside was a screenshot of my bedroom window from outside. Timestamp 317, me visible in bed. Grainy, but clear enough. My body under the blanket, the shape of my head on the pillow, that soft orange glow from my salt lamp. The curtain had a tiny gap I never noticed before. He'd been standing in that narrow slice of darkness in the yard, looking in. Long enough to line up the shot, tap the screen, save it. I checked my phone from that night. No calls, no texts, no alarms. Just clean, oblivious sleep while some fucker stood in my yard and watched me breathe. My brain went quiet. No more excuses, no more, maybe it's nothing. Every cell in my body just screamed, get out, but where? I stared at that timestamp and thought about every time I'd woken up at night and brushed off that prickling feeling as anxiety. I thought about every stupid detail I'd ever shared online to feel less alone. Every safe route post, every selfie, every comment where I joked about hating loud doors and jump scares. On the bottom he'd scribbled, "Don't worry, I won't knock. You hate sudden noises." I worked maintenance in a crappy complex when a local true crime case hit Reddit hard. A missing teen, last seen near a street. The girl's face sat on every TV in the laundry room, every cheap plastic bulletin board in the lobby, that same school photo smile printed 100 times over the old fire drill notices. Tenants argued about it in the hallway like it was sports. Some swore they'd seen her, some swore the cops were hiding something. I'd snake a drain or swap a light and hear her name through the wall like background noise. The main thread pinned in my city sub was basically a shrine of armchair detectives. My phone kept lighting up with notifications because I'd stupidly commented once about how often the cops cruised our block. The comments never stopped. People zoomed in on grainy screenshots of security footage, circled random pixels, called each other idiots like it was a competition. Half of them sounded more excited than worried. It bothered me more than I admitted. That girl was a real person, not some murder mystery DLC. My coworker, Tom, loved it. He treated the thread like a second job. He'd come into work already wired, eyes red like he hadn't slept, and started on theories before coffee even finished brewing. He'd read comments out loud at lunch, ran about how stupid cops are, brag he'd solve it first. He'd wave his phone in my face and say crap like, "Look at this, man." They walked right past the camera. You can see the reflection of another person in that car window if you brighten it. He laughed like it was a game. I thought it was just online bravado. Everyone talks big on Reddit. I told him that once, that none of these people would know what to do if something actually happened right in front of them. He got quiet for a second, then said, "That's where you're wrong. Some of us pay attention." It didn't land as a joke. I remember that now and want to crawl out of my own skin. Tom wasn't some horror movie villain type. That's the worst part. He was just a slightly overweight guy with a shaved head and a tacky skull hoodie. always smelling like old coffee and WD-40. He joked with the tenants, held doors open, fixed kids' bikes when they left them busted in the courtyard. He sent dumb memes in the maintenance group chat at 2 a.m. He bitched about rent going up like everyone else. If you lined up 10 guys from our crew and asked who looked like a predator, I don't think anyone would have picked him. The week after the girl disappeared, the complex felt tighter somehow. People double-locked everything. Moms walked their kids straight to the door instead of idling in the car. I picked up more suspicious noise calls than broken appliances. Every creak turned into a 911 fantasy in someone's head. I tried to stay out of it. I'd see her face on my phone screen, then see the dark alley between buildings B and C, the one that runs out to the side street, and my stomach would lurch. Same brick, same rusted railings. It was too close. Then that storm hit. You know the kind where the drains just give up? Rain slammed the windows sideways. Lightning killed the parking lot lights. And about an hour into it, I get a call from the boss. Pipe burst in Tom's building, 3rd floor, ceiling leaking into 3 units at once. Tom was off that night. No answer on his phone. Boss tells me to grab parts from his locked toolbox in the maintenance room because he'd restocked earlier that week. I remember feeling pissed more than anything. I'd already worked a double, my socks were wet, and now I had to wade through ankle-deep water in Building D's basement. The hallway lights flickered like a cliche and smelled like wet drywall and piss. The maintenance room door stuck from the humidity, and I had to shoulder it open. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from boss, the combination to Tom's box. I knelt in front of it, wiped my hands on my shirt, punched in the numbers. The lock clacked open with this cheap little sound, nothing dramatic. I lifted the lid, expecting wrenches, fittings, the usual mess of metal and rubber. On top of the tools sat a cheap digital camera and a folded printout of a Reddit thread. Theory: she knew her abductor. The paper was creased like he'd read it 100 times, edges gone soft. My brain kind of snagged on that for a second. I knew the title. I'd scrolled past it at work earlier that week. The top comments had been arguing about whether she'd willingly gotten into a car. Tom's username, highlighted, was all over it. He'd taken a yellow highlighter to his own comments like a kid studying for an exam. The ink bled through. Little notes in the margins. Good point, idiot. Arrows pointing back to his own posts. My stomach did this slow, cold twist. I'd never actually paid attention to his handle before. Seeing it there, printed in that ugly Reddit font, made it feel less like some online persona and more like a fingerprint. He'd mapped the victim's route, including a shortcut that cuts through our parking lot. A shortcut the news never mentioned. I remember staring at that line, tracing the route he'd drawn with a pen, realizing exactly which crack and which sidewalk he'd met. He'd labeled the dumpsters. He'd drawn little XS where cameras were and question marks where he wasn't sure. He'd circled the gap in the fence behind Building C, the same gap tenants used to sneak their dogs out to the field. Water dripped somewhere behind me, a slow, steady tap that sounded like a clock. I told myself to grab the damn couplings and go, that I was being dramatic, but curiosity chewed through my good sense. It felt physical, like something pressing behind my eyes. The camera just sat there on top of his tools like it wanted me to pick it up. I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked, slightly sticky, like he'd used it with greasy hands. My thumb found the power button before I could talk myself out of it. The little screen blinked awake, bright in the dim room, and for a second, I saw my own warped reflection. Then the gallery popped up. First photo. Our courtyard, empty. Early morning light, long shadows, the crappy metal benches, the playground with the peeling red slide. Nothing special. It could have been any day. I almost relaxed. Next photo. Same courtyard, later, judging by the light. People in the background this time. A couple kids on bikes. A woman smoking on her balcony. Foreground focused on the path between the 2 buildings, the one that lines up with that shortcut he'd mapped. Next, the girl from the news, blurred, hurrying past the dumpster. My brain didn't accept it at first. She looked smaller, less polished than her school photo. Hood up, shoulders hunched like she didn't want to be seen. The timestamp on the corner matched the night she vanished. Give or take a few minutes. Next, closer. Same angle, just zoomed where he'd stepped forward. Her profile, mouth tense, eyes cast down. The trash bags around the dumpster looked familiar, the way one always split open because the lid didn't shut right. I remember taking that trash out earlier that week. I wonder if I'd walk past her. Closer. Her hair visible now, damp from the drizzle that had been falling that night. You could see the little logo on her backpack. It matched the one people kept posting in the thread, arguing about whether it meant she had a boyfriend or not. The camera flash had started to kick in, harsh and too bright. Her face caught in the flash, eyes squeezed shut like she'd seen it coming. That shot hit me like a punch. There was fear there, or maybe pain, or maybe I just saw what I already believed, but either way my chest went tight. Her teeth were clenched. One hand blurred up toward the lens. Behind her, in the darkness past the dumpster, you could just barely make out a shape. Not a clear figure, more like a smudge where there shouldn't be one. The kind of thing Reddit would circle in red and scream about. I flicked through faster, heartbeat thudding in my ears. Trash, asphalt, a shoe on its side, a smear that could have been mud, or something else leading toward that gap in the fence. The photos got jerkier, like he'd moved while shooting. I kept waiting for a shot that showed him, something that made it undeniable. Last picture was a selfie. Tom, smiling, camera held low, police tape behind him. He'd taken it from just outside the lot entrance. After they'd found whatever they found in the field, you could see the news van in the blur behind him, the blue and red lights reflecting in his eyes. He looked happy. Not nervous, not shaken. Happy, like he just won something. Captioned with a Sharpie on the printed thread, "Told you she knew him." The words were hard and jagged, pressed deep into the paper. Underneath, he'd underlined one of his own comments about familiar routes and trust. I stood there in that damp maintenance room, rain pounding the walls, holding a camera that shouldn't exist. I thought about walking straight to the office, calling the cops, dropping it all on the desk. Then I imagined Tom's face when he realized someone had been in his box. I imagined him watching the security feeds. Because of course he watched them. He mapped them out, for fuck's sake. I imagined him catching me alone in one of those same hallways he knew so well. I put everything back exactly how I found it and called in sick the next week. He still sent me funny crime memes in group chat like we share a joke. I basically handed a stranger my house keys through Reddit diagrams. I threw my whole apartment on a DIY sub one night, drunk and bored, asking how to maximize space. I drew the layout in paint like some budget architect, labeled every window, wrote which doors stuck, even added this stupid note next to the balcony slider. Doesn't quite lock, huh? I mentioned I was on the 4th floor, like that made me safe by default. Reddit ate it up. People circled spots, suggested shelving. The top comment got gilded for telling me to put storage over my bed. It felt good, watching strangers care about where I slept. Then a throwaway DM'd me, said they could mock the place up in 3D if I gave more precise measurements. That phrasing should have set off alarms, but all I felt was weirdly flattered. Like, oh cool, I have a personal designer now. They asked for distances between bed and door, bed and window, couch and TV, width of the hallway, balcony depth, ceiling height. I paced around with a tape measure at midnight, sending numbers like it was totally normal to give a random internet ghost a full technical map of your life. They asked for photos to make sure the proportions look right. So I sent those too. Bedroom from the hall, living room from the couch, balcony door from inside and outside. One shot with the lights off so they could see the way streetlight falls in. That one felt intimate. My bed is this cheap frame jammed against the wall, and the way the light hit in that picture, it looked like something out of a crime scene. I joked in the DM about how I had insomnia and usually lay there awake till 3 or 4, and added, upside, 4th floor balcony, nobody's climbing up, so I'm at least safe while I'm losing my mind. They replied with a laughing emoji and said something like, "Good to know your habits. Helps with realistic lighting." I thought they meant in the 3D model. I didn't hear from them again. The account just went quiet. Weeks went by. My life slipped back into the usual bullshit. Go to work, come home, microwave crap, scroll on my phone till my eyes hurt, then stare at the ceiling while my brain replays every mistake I've ever made. My cat always did this thing at around 3 a.m., where she'd howl in the hallway like she saw ghosts, then hop on the bed and knead my ribs until I shoved her away. Annoying, but familiar. Then one night she didn't. I woke up because it was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Wrong quiet. No upstairs footsteps, no pipes, no fridge hum. My brain came online all at once, like someone flipped a switch, and I realized my cat wasn't making a sound. I turned my head and saw her jammed under the dresser. She never goes under there. She was flat to the floor, ears back, eyes blown wide, staring at the bedroom door like it was about to open itself. I whispered her name, and she didn't even blink. That's when I heard it, a soft scrape on laminate. Not a step, a deliberate slide, like someone easing their weight forward an inch at a time. It came in short bursts. Slide, stop, slide, stop. I lay completely still, facing the door, too scared to even pull the blanket higher. My phone was on a nightstand behind me, and it might as well have been in another city. If I moved, the mattress would creak. I remember typing about how I sleep like a corpse once I finally crash. I remembered saying my bedroom door sticks, so I never fully close it because I can't be bothered to yank it. I'd basically told a stranger that if they ever stood where I was now, this is exactly how things would be set up. The scraping came closer. I watched the gap under the door. It was just a black line, then it wasn't. A darker shadow slid into it. Not a clear shape, just this thicker stripe that didn't belong. It stopped right in front of the door. The air changed. Heavy. Pressed. I could feel someone standing there on the other side, listening, testing if I moved. I counted my breaths in my head, tried to keep them shallow. I wanted to piss myself. I wanted to scream. I did nothing. My cat didn't move either. She was so rigid her claws clicked on the floor when she trembled. After a while, the shadow shifted very slowly, like someone turning their body, and the scraping started again, this time moving away down the short hall toward the living room. I followed in my head. 3 steps turned 2 steps to the balcony. Silence. I told myself it was a neighbor in the hallway, but it didn't sound like that. It sounded inside. Then I saw it. My bedroom door was cracked just enough that I could see a sliver of the living room wall and the edge of the balcony curtain. That curtain moved, just an inch. A tiny push, like a hand slipped in behind it, fingers testing the fabric. There was no draft. Windows closed, heat off. That curtain never moved unless I brushed it. The movement stopped quickly, like whoever was behind it realized they'd done too much. I just lay there with my heart banging against my ribs, thinking about that fucking balcony diagram, the note about the broken lock, the picture of the wood bar I'd wedged in the track. I pictured someone outside, hanging by their hands on my railing, using those exact details to work the door open in the dark. I thought about calling 911, but the idea of talking felt suicidal. Even the click of my phone screen felt too loud in my imagination. If the person in my living room didn't know I was awake yet, I wanted to keep it that way. So I stayed frozen. At some point, my brain just overloaded and shut off. I must have blacked out from fear or fallen into that shallow, useless sleep you get after pulling an all-nighter. Because the next thing I knew, my alarm was blasting and the room was full of this gray, ugly morning light. For a second, I convinced myself it was just a nightmare. The cat broke that illusion. She crawled out from under the dresser, slow and stiff, like an old animal. She paced to the bedroom door, sniffed the crack, then backed away and refused to go first. She always bolts out when I get up. Not that day. I swallowed, forced myself to stand, and pushed the door open. The hallway looked normal. Living room looked normal at glance. Couch, TV, sad little coffee table. I almost relaxed. Then I saw the balcony. The door, the one that never quite locked unless you bullied it, was shut and perfectly aligned. The latch was all the way turned. The frame sat clean in the track, like a showroom demo. I never managed that. I always left it a tiny bit off. And the piece of wood I used as a makeshift bar in the track, it wasn't wedged. It lay neatly on the floor a few inches back, parallel to the rail, like someone had taken out, stepped inside, then laid it down close enough to how I'd had it in the photo, hoping I wouldn't notice. My skin went cold. Nothing else was touched. Wallet, laptop, TV, all there. No drawers open, no mess. Whoever broke in didn't want my stuff. They came in, moved through my space, quiet as hell, stood right outside my bedroom door while I lay there pretending to be unconscious, then slipped out the way they came. I staggered into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked wrecked, eyes red, skin gray, like I'd already died and my body hadn't caught on. I thought about calling the cops, filing a report, but what would I say? "Hi, officer, nothing's missing, but my door is weird and my cat got spooked." They'd laugh it off. Hell, I would have laughed at me. So I did nothing. I made coffee with shaking hands and sat on the couch, staring at that perfect balcony lock. At some point, autopilot kicked in and I grabbed my phone. Reddit was still open. My post still sat there with all my cute little drawings and everyone's comments. I scrolled through like I was looking at a crime file. Every arrow and annotation felt like a confession. I opened my DMs to stare at the dead throwaway account, then backed out. That's when a new message popped up. Same thread. New throwaway. No history. No avatar. The preview text hit me like a punch. I tapped it with numb fingers and read the whole thing. Hours later, a new DM pinged that same thread. Tried a different design. You sleep very still. That helps.